Okay, I believe we left off with this slide yesterday. And remember, there's four key components that we wanted you to keep in mind. Okay, one was the classification of a virus. Is it a provirus or is it a retrovirus? And then number two would be, well, what type of cycle does it go through? Is it a lytic cycle, like many cold viruses or flu viruses will travel through? Those are also proviruses that when they replicate, they destroy the cell and then move along and occupy more cells to invade and produce more viruses. But our immune system can get a handle on those fairly easily. But that's what makes the proviruses different than those of a retrovirus, because it's one of those aspects that we had talked about yesterday or a couple days ago, referring to, for instance, this room could be the cell, and having a key to get into the cell membrane like it's supposed to, has the right information to travel into there. On the other hand, with retroviruses like those of HIV and maybe other types such as the hantavirus, I would think would be a classification of that, just because it's so can be deadly. That could be one. I'm just trying to think of off the top of my head. I wouldn't think it would be it could be the chicken pox as well, because what happens is that can stay in your system, and then what we picture as chicken pox as children, you may receive again later on in life, known as shingles. I believe it's the same type of virus that causes that. That could be an example of a retrovirus as well, just because of the cycle that it goes through. Okay? And again, HIV is considered as a retrovirus because it takes over the genetic material inside the host, and then just can stay dormant for quite an amount of time. And people who may have been diagnosed with HIV, that when they are, or I should say when AIDS makes its ugly presence known, it can be some fairly simple illness that can be so deadly to them, just because their immune system is so compromised. Okay, so this is what we're talking about with the lytic cycle. Remember, we said we wanted you to remember lytic and lysogenic. Okay, so just like with that of a cold virus or the flu, okay, once inside the host, which would be us or many other types of organisms as well. And if I can pull the information up, I believe it was on the national news last night, and it was dealing with a type of virus in deer. I want to say they call it zombie virus, or if I think about this, it was CWD, where I'll have to do some quick research on that. And what it does, it's actually a prion that causes that problem. That's one of your vocab terms then as well. Okay, so once this virus, whether it's a flu or whether it's that of a cold virus, gets inside and expresses that genetic material. Okay, and it takes over the host cell's genetic material. And the difference between the biggest difference between this and the lysogenic cycle then is this right here. Occurs over a short time frame. Okay, and as we said, once it takes over the genetic material, it's just creating more and more viruses, and then that healthy cell then is killed. New viruses look for new cells to host to make more. So again, what this does is just keeps replicating and replicating, creating more viruses. But what happens is our immune system can eventually get a handle on these type, whether it's a cold virus or that of the flu virus. Unlike the lysogenic cycle that you see here, okay, it's integrated into the host cell's chromosome, unlike that of the lytic cycle. Okay, so this occurs over a long time frame, as you can see. Similar to the lytic cycle, the virus is attached to the plasma membrane, and the nucleic acid enters the cell. So again, it has the genetic material to trick the cell membrane to come inside the cell. And this is why we tried to explain the idea that, yeah, we don't want any administrators in this classroom. They're kind of like a virus. They typically don't have the genetic material that we would picture coming in here. Just, for instance, the faculty member, whether it's Mr. Williamson or myself, have the keys to get in here. So we have the correct genetic material. On the other hand, you could say, well, administrators, they're viruses. We don't want them in here, but yet they have a key that allows them to get in here. And what we're talking about is right here. They have, instead of this case, the virus has the right genetic information. The master key allows them to come in here. Okay? So again, a provirus, okay, would be something simple like that of the flu or that of the common cold. Okay. And unlike the lytic cycle, okay, disease symptoms of proviruses, okay, so they can go through the lysogenic cycle or the lytic cycle, but in this case, cold sores, they can reoccur, and when that happens, you might not realize you have a cold sore, and that's why some proviruses can also go through this lysogenic cycle. Okay, and then here's other examples of that, of viruses that go through the lysogenic cycle. And when we're talking about this down here, again, the lytic cycle is a little different, all right? Once inside the body, different types of factors can cause reoccurrence. And what happens when we're talking about physical or emotional stresses, the physical type would be the idea that you're not getting the appropriate amount of rest, okay? And the emotional stress could be the idea that having the lots of things on your mind. Oh, I got a test tomorrow, or I got the ACT coming up next week, or different things that can play on your mind and certainly have a problem in causing, or can be an underlying factor to not getting the appropriate amount of rest that you should, that we would like for you to obtain. Okay, so that does it for section 24.1. We will pick up with that next time.